Good evening and welcome to the June 1st, 2023 Penfield Historic Preservation Board. I'm Tom Combs, the chairman. We'll call the meeting to order here at about 5:35. First item is approval of the minutes from May 4th. They just had the one little correction of Don's name, and otherwise, any other comments, updates, questions?
No.
Any objections? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item, we have an application for a certificate of appropriateness from Sarah Jamison. She's not here, but I believe that Shannon is up to date on this project to replace the stairs and the railings of her front porch.
Yes, so let's see here. I have some photos from the applicant on the screen here. I sent these to you guys ahead of time. So the existing front steps and railings are deteriorating. They are rotting. They're to the point where I don't believe the homeowners are using them. So they're pretty deteriorated, so they're looking to replace them. Let's see here. And then we have the new design. So it will be wood construction to match the existing. After the new steps are installed and all set, they are going to paint them to meet the existing porch colors. So these are the renderings of what we have of what's being proposed today.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Does this photograph correctly replicate the railing and the posts, or it's just anything?
I believe, so it says the computer-generated illustrations of the proposed stair and railing design. So yes, the stairs and the railings.
Okay. I have a concern with posts
Mm-hmm.
and little,
Little sphere on the
the
top.
little spheres at the top of it. I don't think that is in character with the building.
Okay.
I would, in my opinion, the railing and the top of the railing should be more like existing stair railing.
Okay.
That they are planning to remove.
Yeah, and she did find this photo from 1991, and there aren't any steps on the front porch, as you can kind of see, and it looks like the railing is solid. So that's not necessarily historic per se, 1991, but that's what was there before. And I mean, you could even say that what is there now is not necessarily historic.
So what they're showing, the photograph, the third one from the bottom, that shows a curved newel.
Oh, this, yeah.
Not this one, higher. This
That
one.
one.
Where
Oh,
is
that
that from?
It says this was the railing from 2011, so it looks like maybe in between that time, the curved part fell off.
Okay.
Because it's not in the photo from last year.
Right. Well, it's just that the building porch has columns that are classical columns, and the spheres at the top of the railing are from completely different period.
Right.
I think if they did something simpler, would go with the building better.
You're just removing the little spheres?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they kept the same design and just didn't have the spheres, would everyone be okay with that?
There's no dimensions on there. I don't know that those stair handrails would be within code. I don't know if can't tell if they're a graspable handrail or not.
So
That's not our prerogative. They're not talking code.
But she says that she gives us the sizes.
right, so this is just a rendering, so it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it's just to give you an idea of the size and scale. When I do they have to apply for a building permit, so when I do the inspection, I'll make sure that it meets code, of course.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that because in these renderings, it looks like there's a whole porch there. This doesn't extend into the porch at all.
Nope, they just did that to give context. So it's just the stairs and these front railings.
I misunderstood.
At least that was my understanding.
So the solid front of the porch it's going to remain.
Not sure, actually. That's a good question. Only the.
We could always make the motion. If we're in favor of it, we could always make the motion either or.
Right, yeah. I'm trying-
Or is that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on.
No,
Or were you
that's
going with
fine.
it shouldn't be?
Yeah, I mean, I came away not clear if that solid front was included because the renderings had the railing across.
And I thought it wasn't. Like, I thought the solid front was gone.
Oh,
So,
My understanding is that the railing, the way it's shown, will go instead of the solid front.
oh, okay.
but either way, I think it's an improvement, and I like it.
Yeah, the application is not quite clear about the extent of the railings, if it will just be the railing, handrails for the stairs, or if it will be all around the porch.
Can we,
Paint them white?
Yeah, so they're going to paint it, that white and blue. So the white,
Do you know what the material choices were?
they're doing wood. So it's existing wood construction, and then the new construction will be pressure-treated wood.
Tough to paint that sometimes.
Right, so you have to let it sit usually for a little while and then paint it a year or so later, so.
and the dimensions are the same as the current stairs? This looks a little.
Correct,
tighter.
yeah, I think it said that the stairs will be the same size.
Well, could we make that a motion that we approve of it without the little spheres on the top of the posts and including the railing across the front if that's what the owners want to do?
Yeah, you can do that so it's an approval with conditions, and I would basically let them know that it was approved if they agree to removing the spheres. And if they have an issue with it, they can come back to the board for the next meeting and have a discussion about it.
I'll second that.
Yeah, great.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any other conversation, comments? All in favor? I did that already. Just wanted to be sure.
Just keeping us on our toes.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item, informational item, is the Clark House. There's a couple of things here. You saw the minutes from last meeting, so I don't want to repeat all of that. We did come away, I think, with a couple of items that weren't, or a couple of our comments that, while I think very meaningful, they weren't leaving a clear idea of what we wanted. First of all, bring you up to date, we all saw probably Shannon's letter to the board, which attempted to clarify what we talked about and added some important thoughts as to what we should do. It wasn't clear to me if that was given to Bergman or not.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, the town board reviewed it and agreed to send it along to Bergman as well.
Okay. And there is a meeting planned for the 14th, to which Shannon and I have been invited with Bergman to, we hope, further clarify what we want done, and then I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other issues related to the lodge that the town will speak to, and then hopefully move it towards a conclusion as to what's going to happen.
Right, so the meeting is set up in 2 weeks, and it is between Bergman, town staff, and then Tom and I were invited. I unfortunately cannot attend, but Tom will be speaking on behalf of the Historic Preservation Board. It's basically an opportunity to open up the conversation so that Bergman can clarify some of the changes that the Historic Preservation Board and Town Board are looking for, so that they don't end up doing a ton of redesigns and having to go back to the drawing table, not to extend the process out too long, I think is the goal.
So what I'd like to do, so that at that meeting I can articulate as best I can the feelings, the desires of this group, talk a little bit about first of all, the visual separation idea, which Chuck brought up last time, and I think it was extremely important, that the way it's drawn, if you stood in front of the main entrance there and you look down, it's like a straight line, and there's no good separation between the old house and the new building. And what could we do about that? Now, I made the suggestion, but we didn't really get into it, of could we just move the bathrooms? And my thinking there was a couple of things. One is that if that piece of the structure was taken, that there would be a very clear distinction where the house ended, and in a lot of cases you couldn't even see necessarily where the connection was. I mean, I think we all agree that the connection is okay. We need to have a connection between the house and the lodge. So in addition to that, though, as I thought about the park, that this is not a good place for the bathrooms for the park, that they belong somewhere out where all the people are, which is over in the direction of the old cart house. The cart house, to the best of my knowledge, has sewers, electrical, and water, and it may not be that big a deal to make a bathroom when the utilities are there, unlike what I understand for the pickleball courts, is that it's a very big deal out there in the middle of the field where there are none of those utilities. So I wanted to see what the board thinks of that suggestion and whether I should make that.
And just to clarify, right now, there is no scope of work for the cart barn. It's not included in this project, and there's no determined use or projects for it as of right now, just so everyone is aware.
Seems like a good idea to me.
Do you have to, does it have to have a bathroom in there for the new use that they're using and wherever they're going to put the lodge?
So the lodge has bathrooms
Oh, it does?
inside.
Okay.
So-
Oh, in addition to the ones outside?
Right, so it has the ones inside for the newest event space. So that will take care of the occupancy inside the building. So the intention, I believe, was that those exterior bathrooms were use of people in the park, not.
They don't open up into the park.
Correct, right. So the question is, do they need to be part of this scope of work? Or is it hindering this design? Is it something that can be moved to another location? I think that's the question right now.
If you look at the floor plan, on the left you will see dark gray. Those are new bathrooms for the lodge. And the bathrooms, restrooms for the park are those too small, and they can be easily removed from there. And that link could stay the way it is.
Right, so that link actually does host both sets of bathrooms, the
Right.
interior and exterior. But right, maybe we don't need those exterior bathrooms in this.
Right.
Yeah, I just thought it made a better separation of the.
Right, so then that would remove those two doors on that facade.
So if people are in agreement, I'll make that suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it may be turned down, but we'll see.
Okay.
The other things that we had to say were generally related to the mass of the building. And Shannon sent us some of those documents, which I found very interesting and helpful. But it did leave me with thinking about the 2 points of building onto a historic structure, that it should be differentiated, but it should be compatible. Now, for me, that was very ambiguous. So I thought if we spend a minute talking about that, and maybe more specifically, what would we like to see? Would we want them to start all over? Now, Mira, you made a very good comment that they're architects and they should be able to figure this out. And
Yeah,
it might be
but-
leaving it too open for them.
No, because in my opinion, if they cannot do it themselves, they should hire an architect who is experienced in preservation. And that's their job.
It was confirmed to me that Bergman has been working with a historic preservation consultant. I'm not sure the details of that. I just know that they have been. So I think that they were a little surprised at the comments that the Historic Preservation Board had, because they thought that they were going along the lines of historic preservation. So I think maybe just at least a little more something more specific would be helpful to guide them, to avoid having them do a redesign, coming back, telling them no. Just at least a bit more guidance, because it is an ambiguous statement to say compatible but different.
Right. Okay. So you're educated in history of architecture and preservation. Can you explain this to the group, please?
Just what that means?
What it means.
Yeah, so basically, as for an addition to a historic building, you want the historic building to be the most important piece and the piece that you notice, and you can look at it and say, oh, that's the original one, that's the historic piece, and that the addition is very easily differentiated, but it doesn't look like two completely different buildings. You want them to still go together, but you can tell what's new and what's old.
And usually it's achieved either different materials or maybe a little bit more contemporary look, but it has to be supplemental to the main building. It cannot be taller, for once, and I don't believe this is taller.
I think something that you mentioned too last time is that the lodge event space kind of has a mix of the contemporary and then trying to fit in the old, which is confusing in the design. Am I correct in that?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the hang up and kind of why it maybe looks not quite right. So maybe going more the contemporary style instead of trying to mimic.
Right, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
what does contemporary mean?
Windows, pretty much. But can you please zoom into one of the rendering? Yeah, you see, like they have shutters on that building that makes it look in the period of existing building. But then under the gable, they have this large trapezoid contemporary window. So,
You mean the entranceway?
I'm sorry?
You mean the entranceway?
Oh,
Yeah,
no, on the
well,
back?
that's not, I think is that the entrance?
On the patio
I don't see a
part?
door, the patio,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
yeah, the patio. And I understand that for that type of building, they want large windows. So if they want to go contemporary, maybe they should get rid of windows, small windows with shutters and go more of contemporary route on the whole building. I mean, that's, or if they, another option is to use the windows instead of the trapezoid windows, use a large bay window or like on existing buildings. So then they will be more in the period of existing building, but by the fact that the new building is lower, it will feel supplemental.
I guess I was wondering why we're committed necessarily to making it an addition to the Clark House. I don't know if we're further ahead by doing that, or if it would be just as effective to build the gathering space as a separate building. Just from a construction standpoint, then you would have to try to tie into the old part of the Clark House, and the Clark House would be more prominent then. And there's no plans for remodeling the Clark House, as I remember, right? It's just going to gut it and leave it, or was there?
So right now, the plan is to rehabilitate it, to preserve it, but there's no plan of what the new use of it will be. But I think that's part of the problem, separating the new event space, is that right now there's no use for the Clark House, so we would rehabilitate it, and then there's no use for it. I think the problem is that it's really small, so there's not really much that can be done inside of it, and I think that's part of the hang-up right
You
now.
know, I think we talked about that at one of the earlier meetings, but if we're not going to do it anyway, if it's attached to the new building, then what is our advantage in attaching it?
Right, so it's difficult to say without knowing what the use
Right.
will be.
I guess my fear, I understand that completely. My fear is if it isn't attached, will the Clark House building get the proper attention going forward? We have a history of not getting attention, and I'm very afraid, and they haven't ruled out that they might use it inside for something.
Yeah, it would.
It's just right now, it's just, the whole thing is to save the building, and I guess, and I don't know, this might be just my own paranoia talking, but if it's connected, is there a better likelihood that the building will be safer in the future?
I would
And that's
think
my
that
fear.
way. I would think that way. And I believe the second floor of the original building was planned to be used for offices or something that
I
would
think
It
they
would
took
have,
them out.
it would have to be private use, not public, because then the staircase
Right.
would have to be redone.
Yeah, but
Right.
offices are fine.
Right, I think the
not
problem is that there's no,
There's no bathrooms.
well, that,
No
and
accessibility.
there's no one to go in there right now.
Yeah.
There's no offices needed.
No, but offices to serve the party house.
It can't be.
Right.
I thought we were told it couldn't be because it's not accessible.
Right, so it can't, right, it's not currently accessible for public use.
No, it's not for public, for employees.
But, so whoever, because this will, I believe, currently, the rentals all go through recreation, so I think it would continue, it would just be a new, that's who it would still go through, so they don't need new offices. I don't think that the addition of this event lodge space will create a job in the town. Am I correct in that assumption? It's not that someone would need to be staffed there.
Yeah.
I
But,
believe.
you know, I think somebody has to look into accessibility for historical building, and because there are exceptions for that.
Okay?
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on that, Mira.
So existing buildings, specifically historical, have a separate chapter in New York State Code, and so they are in existing building code, and they have exceptions for accessibility, and basically whatever you do with this building, you cannot make it worse than it already is. And you can improve accessibility as possible, as much as possible. So unless somebody is planning a banquet room or a conference room upstairs, everything else can be considered private use and will not need an elevator.
No. But for any use, whether it be an office or meetings for the town tea club, you need a bathroom, you need access.
Right.
So I think, Chuck, to your point, I think that it really needs to be attached to the
Correct.
services.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I?
Well, why couldn't there be separate services
Because then
for the building?
because you would have to do them twice, and that's more money. And if you do it only in one building, then the person in another building will have to go outside to get into the other building, and that's not convenient.
I understand, but if you're not building the little vestibule connecting link between the two, I think you could find enough money to put a bathroom into the existing Clark House. I'm not saying separate them by a lot of space, but I think that would be more respectful to the Clark House than to build what they're proposing attached to it. And then to put some money into the outside of the Clark House to stabilize it, and then see what happens. So maybe they'll come up with a use for it. Maybe they'll have a small event center for something that they could use that for.
question. Does anybody have an example of what a historic building saved with something attached to it that does meet the standard that you set forth? I was originally trying to find one in the area, not necessarily just in the town, and I came up with the Green Lantern. For those of us who are old enough to remember when it was the Green Lantern, I don't know what it is now, but and people laughed at me and they said, no, I missed the boat because the party house doesn't complement the build. It doesn't, it's just totally different, so that didn't work. But I couldn't think of one that would be a good example.
The only one that I know of, Don, that might fit that example is on the road from the thruway down to Canandaigua. There's a very old house on a corner, and they built a bank structure attached to it.
Okay.
And, you know, it was-
way out towards Canandaigua, yeah.
Yeah, it's about maybe halfway from the
Yeah.
thruway to the town.
Before you get to this,
And I think it's a CMB bank
yeah.
that looks like they did exactly that. I don't know if it was a designated property, but it was a very old
Yeah.
house.
I didn't think of that one, but yeah, now I do remember that because that is impressive.
Yeah, they did a nice job.
Yeah, they did.
Well, I worked on few projects where we built addition to historical buildings that were addition, but they are multi-story buildings, so I don't know
If it's
if
relevant,
that would be
okay.
a good example for you, but I can send out elevations. And pretty much the additions were contemporary, but with the similar style windows.
Okay.
So they were kind of, you know, the same character, but they used contemporary materials.
Well, I can throw that option out there, Chuck, and see what people think. I think from around this table, I'm sensing that we generally think that the attachment is useful in this circumstance. If I can go back to the windows for a moment, is that something that should be a recommendation, that if we're going to have a modern-looking entranceway and the big windows in the back and on the north, that the windows on the sides be made more contemporary, and that to include the dormers?
Well, you do need dormers on this roof, otherwise it's so long and boring. I would add one more in the back. Is it
On the
back?
southeast side?
So add a dormer on each
I
side?
would add a dormer on the back, otherwise it's,
In terms of the material on the siding, to have that similar to the houses?
well, the house is wood, right? It's painted wood.
Yes.
This will not be wood, I'm pretty sure it will be the fiber cement plank, right?
I would be, I don't know for sure because they didn't tell us the materials, but I would assume it's not wood siding that they're proposing.
Right.
But the same clapboard look, I guess, is what I was
With
saying.
same clapboard look.
Right, so a modern comparable material.
And we want the color of the roofs to match, presumably? Anything else that's troubling anyone?
You know, I was just thinking if it would make it, no, never mind.
All right, well, that's a few things that we will communicate to Bergman on the 14th.
And I can write that up so that you have something to reference as well.
Beautiful.
Great.
Okay. The Preservation Training and Networking Event. Shannon, you did a nice job, you and your friend from Fairport. We had a number of us there. It's well done. Is there any closing comments you'd like to make on that?
Nothing in particular. We had good representation from Penfield, which was great because we were the host. So Caitlin Mivas from the Landmark Society prepared a presentation. She went over the background and history of preservation, some programs and tools, references and guidelines for people. I think it was pretty beneficial for everyone who was there, and it was a good networking opportunity for everyone to kind of talk about how their experiences in historic preservation, what their towns and villages do, and see what they're doing compared to us. So I think it would be great to continue doing something like that in the future and having those discussions with other municipalities.
Yeah. It's good to know that there are a lot of resources out there for the types of things that we do. It's good to know they're there.
Yep, absolutely.
I really think you knocked it out of the park. I've been to a lot of those, and this one was like totally on point of what we do and what we need help with doing.
Yep.
I just thought it was well done. She was a great speaker.
Yeah,
You had
Caitlin
every-
is wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
I'd never
she
heard
worked
her
with
before.
she worked with myself and Jill from Fairport, and we kind of went over the things that we were looking to get out of this. So she specified it to mostly Penfield and Fairport, but also just what the local boards and commissions deal with, and the things that are helpful to us.
And it was just the right time. Everything ran smoothly. And I was kind of surprised at how big the audience was because it was Brighton was there, and I forgot who else.
Yeah, we had good representation.
Yeah.
There was someone from Spencerport, Brighton, the city. Yeah, there was I think someone from Parrington. Yeah, there was a good
So
mix
you
of
must
people.
have really done well advertising it.
Yep, and then we also sent out those certificates so that everyone could have something to show that they participated, and hopefully that encourages people to do it again in the future.
It's good. Well, thank you.
Great job.
Thank you, guys.
I had hoped that Kathy Knauer would be here. You might all have read her email with respect to what she called the Ockenden Dual House, which is sort of up across from Wegmans, up that way. It's an old house. It's in bad shape. I'll let her inform us about that at another date. But it's one that she feels is tied to pioneer families here, which in the Ockendens, who happen to be, I think, our town board chair, town board member, is a direct descendant of the family that whose house that was a long time ago.
Did something trigger her?
Yes, so there is a company, a business that is interested in going into that space and completely redoing it.
Destroying the house?
I think that they're in like very much so preliminary stages. They're putting out feelers to see how the town board feels and to see what kind of response that they were getting to possibly doing a mixed-use space with apartments and businesses. So I think that they would be, I think they'd be taking down the building and building something new.
Which house is that across from Edmund?
It's right next to the Daniel Penfield house, correct? The Salon Enza? Am I
Oh,
thinking?
so that's not
Oh, no,
across from Edmund.
Right?
I thought it was that old house up by Penfield Road towards Wegmans. It was on the left.
Oh, I guess I don't
Kathy's
know.
talked to me about that in the past.
Okay, well, I guess we need her to clarify.
It's a reddish house and
Okay, yeah.
Trees all
It's
over
kind of
the
in
place.
bad
Oh,
state.
maybe I'm thinking of something else.
well, we need to clarify
All
that for
right,
sure.
well, then I guess we'll discuss that at the next meeting, and hopefully Kathy can be here to clarify for us.
We would certainly want to insert ourselves if there was a way to save it and have the developer work with it, as opposed to tearing it down. Okay, any other things that we should talk about?
Is there any update on the barn?
Yeah, we skipped
Oh,
over
I'm
that.
sorry.
That's
Yes.
okay.
How could I forget the barn?
The tarp was put up on the roof the day after our last meeting, so that has been secured over the hole in the roof to hopefully, stop rain and rain from getting in. We had our first advisory committee meeting on May 15th. It was mostly introductory, just going over the goals and objectives, kind of coming up with the criteria, what the options are that we'll be discussing. So just getting all the important information for our next meeting. And that next meeting will be June 28th. So I'm going to have an update for everyone for our next meeting on the progress of that.
And I tried to, I communicated with Carrie and with Candace Lee with respect to seeing if we could get Chuck in there to do a detailed look at what's the inside of the barn was like, or at least be in there with whoever is hired to do that. And that went to the town lawyers and everyone, and they said, we just can't do it. And so as much as I would have liked to have Chuck in there with having eyes for the board on that project, they at least looked at it and they said for liability reasons, and there were some other reasons that they articulated to me, they can't do it. So felt bad about that.
What were the other reasons, Tom?
Sorry?
What were the other reasons that they articulated to you?
Well, one was the needing to have somebody who is certified to do that, and I don't know what your certification might be, but that was part of it. And there was the liability, and there was a third reason. That whoever that they have to hire somebody, and that hiring has to go through a bid process, and that couldn't include you.
No, I was never interested in being hired by the town to do anything.
Well,
So,
maybe it was interpreted that way, but
Okay.
but the end result of that would have been to get you in there, and that was what my intention was, to see if we could do that. So it's unfortunate. I don't know if even for us what we're going to be able to see from the door of the barn. That's about it. I don't think we're going to be able to get inside. So that's the scoop in the barn. Other topics? Anything?
The only other thing that I wanted to bring up, our next meeting is scheduled for July 6th. I know that's the weekend, or the week of July 4th, so I didn't know if anyone had any conflicts, if we need to try and change the meeting date, push it out a month, or if everyone here is going to be able to participate. I know Mike told me he can't come. You won't be here either? For 2 weeks. Okay, anyone else?
Unfortunately, I'll be around.
Okay. Right now, we don't have any applications, but obviously, we'd need a quorum if we do. So I guess I will wait and see if we need a meeting. It will just depend on what is going on and what the progress is. So I'll just keep everyone posted for right now.
Yeah, at a minimum, if we don't have a meeting, we can update you on what happens at the 28th with the barn meeting.
Right, yes, I can always, if we don't need a meeting, I can always send you guys a quick email with whatever updates I have for you.
Yeah, and the same with the 14th with the meeting with Bergman.
Yes. That's all I have. Anyone else have anything?
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
I'll second.
And a second. Okay, thank you all.
Great, thank you guys. Thank you to PCTV.
Are we off?